places, everybody? Okay, before I call to the meeting to order, I want to remind commissioners to unmute yourself, state your name when speaking. I also wanted to mention that for voting on any measure or action today, commissioners on site will be using the voting touchscreen. I understand that Commissioner Stern is participating via teleconference today. Commissioner Stern, when it's time to vote, you can say yay or nay when we call your name. And if you have anything that you want to bring up, feel free to just speak up and we will give you a chance to speak.
Great, thank you.
All right. Ready? Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call to order the January 21st, 2025 Senior Citizen Commission meeting at 2:00 p.m. Can we do a roll call, please?
Let the record show all commissioners are present except Commissioner Angel, who is absent, and Commissioner Stern, who is teleconferencing.
Okay. I'll lead everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to Agenda Item 4, Special Presentations and Proclamations. Today, we have Marie Jones-Kirk, who is the Emergency Manager, Fire and Marine Safety for the City of Encinitas, and for a very timely, I think, discussion about disaster preparedness. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners and guests. As Chair said, my name is Marie Jones-Kirk. I'm the emergency manager here in the city of Encinitas. Now, when this invitation went out several months ago, as I like to say, the timeliness of emergency preparedness is year-round, but tragically, we've had far too many examples in the last couple weeks of what emergency preparedness is and why it's so important. You know, when you see people evacuating and the tragedy of what's happened with the LA fires, and even just overnight here in North County, we had three fires that broke out overnight. As you said, Chair, the timeliness of this conversation is definitely important. Next slide, please. So when we talk about, you know, and when given 15 minutes to talk about emergency preparedness, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my very best. So if you all can just get in, we're going to take this tour on emergency preparedness. Let's get comfy, but I'm going to probably go semi-quickly with this conversation, but please know that I'm available for any follow-up questions that you may have or any inquiries. So when we look at this, I want to talk about who's responsible for emergency preparedness. You probably heard a lot of that in the discussion in the last couple of weeks. I want to talk about hazards. I mean, I could come in here and tell you how to put together an emergency plan and what should go in your go kit, but the reality is you need to know what you're planning for. It's like if you're going to take a trip, you need to know what kind of things you're going to pack based on where you're going to be going and what hazards you might be, you know, encountering. Evacuation planning, that's so critical when you're thinking about emergency preparedness. Again, not just that you have a plan, not that you have a go kit, but what are you going to do if you get that 2 o'clock in the morning call that says you have to evacuate? What steps are you going to take to ensure that you're evacuating? The emergency notifications, I'll go over and talk about that, and additional resources and tools that are available to you. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so when you look at this list, who's responsible for emergency preparedness, you can see that we really take an whole community approach. We as a fire department, we're so fortunate here in Encinitas that we have an amazing fire department, but we're all hazards. Right now, our focus is on red flag warnings and on wildfires, but really our preparation as a fire department and mine as emergency manager is to think about all hazards that could impact our city. So, and when we're talking about that readiness or the preparedness, it's not just the responsibility of the commissioners or the fire department, it's community members, it's a whole community approach. So you can see I have a pretty lengthy list of who's responsible for that emergency preparedness. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some of the hazards. You'll see that I've kind of put those, primary or what we kind of the significant hazards that could happen in our city, wildland fires. Now, for some of you, if you've been in Southern California or if you've been in this region for a period of time, you might already be mentally checking off the list of which emergencies or hazards that you've already, gone through. Wildfires, earthquakes. We're almost at that year mark. It was a year ago tomorrow that we had the January 22nd storm and saw severe flooding throughout our region. So we know the impact that can have. Hard to imagine now as we're talking about drought-like conditions and high fire dangers, the extreme heat. And obviously, now we're again in this place where we're talking about where we're kind of easing into a drought, right? You can see some of those other limited hazards that can impact us. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go in depth in this, being respectful to everybody's time today, but just that we think about when we're thinking about wildland fires. If you remember, there was a time we would have conversations and we'd say, it's fire season. Now we know fire season is year-round. It's not isolated to a particular time of year. There are certain conditions that can heighten that fire danger, but it's a year-round conversation. Next slide, please. There are some tools, and as I like to say when I do this presentation, I like to walk away, and one of my takeaways is that I want all of you to have is that you are anointed emergency managers. And so in addition to having your emergency plan and having your go kit, it's also the information that you have available to you. So here's something that I receive on a daily basis. I get this information from SDG&E. This is there's similar information, and I'll show you in a moment, tools that you all, as the public, have access to the information. But this was as of yesterday. That's showing as of today, right? So it's showing us that certain areas of the county are in those extreme high fire danger areas. You can see on the coast we have some elevated danger. So you don't have to wait for an evacuation order to evacuate. You don't have to wait until there's an emergency to put together your plan or to put together a go kit. If you can see that it's going to be hot and dry in some of these conditions, depending on where you live in the city, you can already be ready, have your car packed up. This is information that's available to everybody, right? So everybody can have access to this type of information. Next slide, please. Earthquakes. So we have the Newport-Inglewood-Rose Canyon Fault, or just known as the Rose Canyon Fault typically. It runs parallel to our coastline here in Encinitas. So we've been fortunate. As I like to say, I never like to taunt the emergency gods, but we've been fortunate that we haven't had an earthquake of significance in our region. But as you have seen last year, there were several, smaller type quakes that occurred up in LA County area and north of that area. So always being aware and mindful to potential for earthquakes. Next slide, please. Severe winter weather, I don't have to go kind of deep and wide to this. I think we've seen the impacts that storms can have on our city and on our region. We've had definitely a lot of these things that down trees. Back in January 2023, we had the sinkhole over on Lake Drive. So these things are, again, very prevalent in our community. Next slide, please. So preparing for a disaster, I'm not going to go through each of these bullet points, but I want, because I'm going to go in depth a little bit more on my following slides, but just some key things to understand. Like I said, the reason why I start with the hazards for you all to understand hazards that could potentially impact our community, because again, you start to think about what kind of things do I need to have. I need to have at home, I need to have in my vehicle, making sure that your vehicle has gas in it. I mean, it's a conversation that my husband and I have often is, you know what, we always how much gas do we have in the car? If we had to evacuate, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, gas stations, you might not have access to a gas station, something could happen, you want to make sure you have that gas in your vehicle. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about a plan, and each of the commissioners, and also I have enough for those that are here in the public, that this, excuse me, water. Even your emergency manager comes prepared. So you'll see that there's this disaster plan right here, it's a great kind of workbook to go through and start thinking about your plan. Start thinking about, when we think about when we're developing our plan, we think, that'll never happen, right? How many people that you think that live in Palisades or Eaton Canyon area up in Altadena thought it'll never happen where we live? The reality is a disaster emergency can happen anytime, anywhere. So you're not just thinking about when you're putting together your emergency plan, it's going to happen when I'm in my home. It could happen if you're here, right? So something could happen while you're at a commission meeting. It can happen if you're at a family member's. It could happen if you're at church. Anywhere it can happen. So when you think about putting together your plan, and this is just a great workbook to start with, is understanding that you want to make sure that you have contacts outside of the area. So, because if you need to contact somebody and our phone system's down, something's happened, you want to make sure that you've got some contacts. That's always a key messaging that I want people to know, is that you don't create a plan in a vacuum. So if you live with people, make sure that you're bringing them into that conversation. If you have family members in the area, make sure that they understand what your emergency plan is. If you have grandchildren that you're responsible for, or you have family members that you're responsible for, bring them in on putting together your emergency plan. You're going to want to review that plan on a regular basis, okay? So I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So let's talk about some of the key areas of a plan. Where are you going to meet? If you have to evacuate in the middle of the night, where are you going to go? Where are you going to evacuate to? Do you have a family member or a friend that lives outside the area? What does that look like? Do you have somebody outside of the state or outside of the area? So for myself, my husband and I, we have family that live up in Orange County. They already know that they're our initial point of contact. Then we can relay information to them. They can get it out to other family and friends and let them know we're safe. It's just that check-in point so we know that we're safe. How will you evacuate your home? Again, workplace, a place of worship. How are you going to do that? Do you have a vehicle? Always, and if you don't have a vehicle, for some reason, I know that's hard to imagine in Southern California, but if you don't have a vehicle, how are you going to evacuate? Making sure that you've got that contact, making sure that you understand how are you going to actually physically leave that place. What's the route? How many of you are like just on autopilot? You leave your neighborhood and you think, I'm just going to drive out this way, and I always go out this way. I always go down to the end of my street and I always turn right. Well, what happens if that area is closed off? What other areas can you evacuate out of your neighborhood or out of this area? So for me, it's like second nature for me as an emergency manager to think, if I had to evacuate City Hall, what are like 3 or 4 different ways that I can get out of City Hall? Can I go straight out the door, run down towards the beach? Can I go out on Vulcan? Which ways can I go? What happens if there's a train at the tracks? Oh, I can't get across the tracks. Which way I'm going to go? So it's not to put fear in people, but it's just getting you to think, because we saw and we have real world examples of cars that were stranded because people panic. And if you don't have a plan, you're going to panic. So that plan becomes so important, and thinking about it before the disaster happens. Also, practicing your plan. Once you have a plan together, so I always say like this, if how many people are like to cook, right? You have a recipe, I've got that recipe down. The more that you do that recipe, the better that those batch of cookies turn out. It's the same thing with your emergency plan. The more that you practice that, the more when that 2 o'clock in the morning call comes, the more that you feel comfortable in executing that plan. Next slide, please. So this is not nowhere close to an exhaustive list of what you're going to put into an emergency go kit. But it's really important. One of the things that we really stress in emergency management is that for some reason you have to shelter in place. Excuse me, you have to stay at home for some reason, or you can't maybe get back and, you can't get access maybe to certain parts of, hold on one second, my apologies. You can't get access to certain things. You can't get to the market. You can't get to maybe to the pharmacy. So making sure that you have at least 72 hours of supplies available at any given time in your home. How do you do that? What does that look like? You can go down to the Dollar Tree, get plastic containers. You can store things that way. But you can also again, food supplies. If you have food allergies, I would say medication is super important. Making sure that you have enough medication, making sure you have access to it. Another critical thing that I always kind of put with the medication is making sure that you have hard copies of all of your prescriptions, right? Super, super important. Making sure that you have that. But that's also you're thinking about not just for yourself, for your loved ones, people that may live in your home, people outside of your home. So again, if you have responsibilities for anybody else, like again, grandchildren or other people in your lives, having that available with you so either you have to leave your house or you have to shelter in place, making sure you have that information. As you can see, I've put together a lot of things on here that relate to kind of specifically to kind of your comfort care, but also things like, and I know it may seem interesting, but like, why do I have face coverings on there? But let's say you have to evacuate and you have to go to a shelter. Right now, that little tickle in my throat is because I'm coming out of having had a cold, right? But in shelters, you can have norovirus, you can have other things that are potentially contagious. I know after we get through a pandemic, people are like, I never want to see a face mask again, but I say it's really important to have in your Go kit. Next slide, please. And as I like to call it, the important stuff. Some of these things are going to be, I would say, generic that everybody should have. Copy your birth certificate, passports, insurance cards, insurance paperwork, anything like that. And I've had some people say, well, I just put all that stuff up into the cloud. I have a place where I store this. But if you don't have access to technology, you can't tap into the internet for whatever reason, you can't access that paperwork, hard copies become really important. So making sure that you have these on a hard copy of those items become really important. Eyeglasses, one of the things that I do with eyeglasses, I will take, like I have the ones that I use all the time, but if I have my prescription gets updated and I have my old ones, those go into my Go kit. So when we're talking about putting together your plan and your Go kit, why is that so important? And I will tell you, right now, if you walked out to the parking lot and we went to my vehicle, you would see that I have a Go kit in my car. In there, I have many of these things. And I guarantee you might be looking at this and saying, well, gosh, it takes a lot of money to pull these things together. Go through your house. I bet you have extras of a lot of these items. Easy to start to build out that Go kit. Or going to, like I said, Dollar Tree. There's a lot of places where you can go and build this out. It doesn't have to be something really expensive to do. I will also talk about on the technology is making sure, because we're so tied to these, right? Not a lot we feel like we can do. This becomes really important for us. Having that external chargers, these also become really important. Shelters, I will say, are doing a really wonderful job. And as I mentioned, shelters, we have the ability here in Encinitas, and we're so fortunate with our community senior center to be able to stand up a emergency shelter if we need to. So part of those supplies, we do have some chargers available to us. But again, you're not sure where you're going to be evacuating to, where that requirement might be, making sure that you have extra chargers. Next slide, please. So that disaster supply kit, and I say this all the time, how many of you remember at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was rushing out to Costco to get toilet paper, right? That was like the big thing. When a disaster strikes, it's too late to buy your equipment. It's too late to buy your supplies. So having those things in advance become really important. You know, and I think when you talk to, and I've talked to people that have had to evacuate, they were so appreciative of the fact that they had, it doesn't mean you have to fill up your trunk or your vehicle with a lot of supplies, but just having some of those supplies become very, very important. Next slide, please. Okay, emergency notifications. You probably heard a lot of this during the fires up in LA and even some of the ones that happened overnight here in San Diego County. If there is a disaster or emergency that happens, evacuations are the responsibility of the Sheriff's Department. So here in Encinitas, the Sheriff's Department would be working very closely with our fire department. Let's say if there was a fire that broke out in a Leavine, they would immediately be working together and evaluating the depth and breadth of that emergency to make a determination, do people need to be evacuated? So it's not an automatically determination. They have to, again, evaluate this. How many people do you want to evacuate? Because you don't want to just evacuate a lot of people and then can become potentially a secondary incident or emergency. So there's a lot of thought that goes into and thinking about when you're going to evacuate. But one of the key pieces is how do we all find out if there's going to be an evacuation? And the County of San Diego has the alert notification system. So you actually have to, what we call opt-in. So you have to register your cell phone or and your email for that. For some who still have, if you remember, some people might still have landlines. When this system rolled out almost 20 years ago, all landlines were opted into the system. But it's really important, and I'm going to say there's going to be 3 takeaways I'm going to keep coming back to is making sure that you're registering your cell phones with the Alert San Diego system. It's really critical, making sure that you're going in there. Now, the nice thing about that is you can register, and I say, again, because remember, you are now all anointed as emergency managers. You're going to take this information and tell at least 5 people after this meeting to make sure that they're registering their cell phones. Now, is that the only way that you can find out about emergency and disasters and evacuations? No. Next slide, please. So a wonderful tool that rolled out, and again, if you were tracking any of the information that was coming out from the fires up in LA, Genesis Protect was used quite a bit. And last May, this rolled out in the County of San Diego. It's one of my favorite tools that I have in my toolbox as an emergency manager. And it's something that I rely on probably daily to be able to go in and look at and identify where the evacuations are happening, what level the evacuations are, right? So the warnings are, get ready. We're not asking you to leave yet, but if you receive an evacuation order, it's go immediately. It's go time, you need to leave immediately. The nice thing, and next slide please, and I'll give you a real world example of this. So last year when we had, right after the system rolled out, there was a fire down in Torrey Pines area, and this is actually an example of what it looked like when those evacuation orders and warnings went out. So as you can see, the yellow area, it was that warning. Now prior to this information was not available to everybody to be able to see this. But now, on your phone, from the comfort of wherever you're at, you can actually see when these notifications go out. So when you, again, next I'm going to ask you to do is download this application. Download Genesis Protect, register your address, and you can register up to 5 different addresses in the application. Next slide, please. Okay, so a couple other tools that I'm going to mention to you. The San Diego emergency app, and this, I actually did a screen print on this, so you can see there was a notification, the red flag warning that went out. So you can see, again, real world information. This is how some of this information gets pushed out. How many of you are familiar with PulsePoint? If you have it downloaded already, so you can see calls that are coming out. You can now, this is obviously specifically for Encinitas Fire Department, but you can also look at other fire departments as well. Remember I was talking about the weather application? Again, great application. You too can see the information, and again, this was as of this morning, so you can see it's showing those higher elevated areas. And I will tell you, watch duty, if you've probably heard a fair amount about this got a lot of press during the LA fires, but this is a great tool. I would say, I was in a meeting a few months ago, and there was a warning that went out, and all of the fire chiefs that were sitting in that room, it was pinging, because it will ping. You can have a notification and get updates. This, again, real world shows you from the Lilac fire that happened overnight up in Bonsall. So you can get information on the evacuations. It'll give you update on fire status. I'll be respectful to our time, so I'm wrapping up. Next slide, please. And then additional resources. It's really important. So you're going to put together your plan. You're going to have your go kit. You're going to make sure that you know your evacuation routes, how you're going to get out. You're going to practice your plan. But it's really important if a disaster or emergency happens that you're tracking and following city social media. So we're very fortunate that we have a really great PIO here in the city. So we'll be pushing out information. You also have the San Diego Sheriff that will push out information 211, which is a fabulous resource that we have here in San Diego County that you can call into and get additional information. And then I always tell people, if you don't have, get a hand crank radio, because you can't necessarily listen to the radio off, and some people don't, off your car, but having that hand crank radio, and then also just tapping into local TV stations as well. I know I went a little bit over, but so thank you for your patience and thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, any questions?
This is Commissioner Stern. I don't know if you can hear me, but I have a question.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to have three questions. My first question is, it's like STD and E turns out the power, because we're in a red flag zone or something. Do the cell towers still work, or do they go out?
Cell towers will still work. And I would say, and I'll just kind of add on a little bit more information. So before there is going to be a power outage, so if we're talking about like the red flag warnings, there's a notification 12 to 24 hours in advance that customers will get. So before that area is what we call de-energized, there's a notification that goes out. Then from there is a 4-hour typically notification that will go out letting people know that there's going to be a power outage. So, but there is cell towers, because there's backup generation and other things that are used for that. Obviously, I don't work for the telco, but I can tell you, typically that's not something that's going to be impacted unless, and we've seen this in some of the fires, unless that cell tower is impacted by fires.
Thank you. By the way, I'm watching this live, so I've been watching all your stuff and your slides. My other two questions are, since we're the Senior Citizen Commission, do you have any recommendations specifically for seniors? And then, let's say if you're living in an assisted living facility, and then like seniors like me, if, my wife's not home, I can't drive, what would my plan be? So I guess it's a three-part question.
No, that's a great question. And I will say this is important to get to know, and I would say I'll kind of separate out the assisted living part of the question, but
Okay.
for people that live independently is get to know your neighbors. Get to know the resources around you. If you are, like I did a presentation a few months back over at the Senior Center, and I said, get to know what resources you have. Who do you have you put together your planning team. So if, Commissioner Stern, you're not able to drive, do you have a neighbor? Do you have somebody that lives close by? Does the Sheriff's Department, letting them know, so if there's an emergency, that they kind of know, this person, it could be, and I'm not saying specifically to you, Commissioner, but let's say there's a mobility challenge, that the Sheriff's Department is aware of that. That information is captured with your address. But I'd say definitely making sure that you have that network of people that are there to support you or just anybody, any senior in the community. And then for specifically to assisted living facilities are licensed by the state of California through Social Services Department. They're required to have an emergency plan on site. They actually plan and do regular drills. But what I've presented today applies whether you live independently in a home, an apartment, assisted living, independent living, community. You can still have a go kit. And another thing, and again, limited to time, but I always tell people, especially like in an assisted living facility, or you live independently, have shoes next to your bed. Have certain things. Have a flashlight next to your bed. Have certain things. So if you have to evacuate in the middle of the night, even though assisted living facilities are required to have, certain lighting available to them, you still want to make sure that you have that ability. Did that answer your question,
Great, thank you.
Commissioner?
Yes, great. Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Gaber, go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner Gaber, thank you for a wonderful presentation, and I always appreciate the depth of services that we enjoy in Encinitas. And one of the things that I get invited to FEMA briefings for one reason or another, and one of the things that FEMA has stressed is that county and city could put out a pre-information thing where to go to in case there's a national emergency, where to go for a county. And I wonder if that could be a consideration, because I had friends that were impacted by the last Florida hurricane, and I was able to send them that copy, and they distributed that. So I was wondering if we might consider that in the future.
So and let me just clarify,
Yeah.
as far as like where, like evacuation sites?
No, this would be for services and some view of, what's the reality of immediate financial aid and that kind of stuff. And FEMA has it on their website, of course, but, it's nice to have that available locally as well. Thank you.
Sure. No,
Yeah.
that's a great question. So
Yeah.
what happens after, and I'll use the January 22nd storm as an example. When that storm hit our region last year, there was an emergency declarations that came in. So FEMA, to your point, Commissioner, they came in, they started providing some resources. But we're so fortunate as a region that the County of San Diego, they stood up what they called a local assistance center and started, advertising what kind of resources are out there. So there are some things that people could tap into and have that as part of their emergency kit even before there's a disaster or emergency. But once that disaster emergency happens, resources are immediately brought into the area. So if people have lost a driver's license or they need to replace a birth certificate or whatever that might be, you have county and state resources that immediately come into that area. Now, we currently don't have, I would say, robust information on where that, where those resources are. We typically don't put that out before, but that's not to say that's something that we couldn't consider look at and adding up to our website under our emergency preparedness. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Commissioner Martin, thank you so much. I'd like to see this done in actually all of our zones in the city because it would be so helpful. And I'm only saying that in the sense of the Capri Grammar School area. It takes just on a very non-emergency level more than 2 hours for those parents to come in and drop off children and 2 hours to pick them up. And in that 2-hour period, there is no way any of the rest of us can actually get out of our driveways. So you're talking about a lot of seniors that are pretty much stuck until the children are all taken out. And they've got to know that because there's also vegetation, wild vegetation entirely around us. And of course, they're also building new multi-unit facilities right in there too. But so I would love to see this kind of come up to the regions too.
Fantastic. I will take that up to the chief, and I will definitely relay that to him. But I'm also interested in finding a little bit more about the area where you live as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Hanwett, and I also want to thank you so much for all this information and for the hard copy because that'll be very helpful. And I just have a question about pets because I have a lot of friends and a lot of them have pets, and we worry about, well, do all evacuation centers allow pets? We heard a lot about LA and how a lot of dogs ended up in shelters, and you'd want to be able to do the best thing.
Sure. No, that's a great question. And being a pet owner myself, it's one of those things when you're thinking about your emergency plan and your go kits, you want a go kit just for your pets. So I can tell you that Red Cross even though we have the ability to be able to stand up a shelter here, it's with the support of the Red Cross. So we will take pets in. And when I say that, I think, and I'm looking over to Christy, I think we've had anything from dogs, cats, different kinds of pets that we've taken in. And then also, we are working collaboratively with the fairgrounds on large animals. So if we had to evacuate horses, also have that ability as well. But I would say, for the most part, that requirement of having to take animals is now a requirement. So, but it's being mindful to the people that if we're going to ask them to evacuate, is making sure that we have a space that are be able to accommodate all the family. Because what we find is that people, if they don't feel comfortable that they have a place to be able to evacuate and to be able to shelter with their pet, they're not going to leave. So that becomes a really important message. It's not just about you evacuating, but it's also making sure that you're taking all of your family with you. So does that answer your question? Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions? Audience members, do you have questions for our speaker? No? Thank you very much for taking the time to come out and speak with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know I took a little time extra, but thank you.
Okay, that brings us to agenda item 5, oral communications, possible direction to staff. Do we have any speakers today?
Yes, we have 3 speakers today. The first 2 speakers are from the Encinitas Library and will come up to the podium together. The first speaker is Renee Hansen, who oversees the adult program services at the library, and she will speak to adult programs. You have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Okay. Hello, my name's Renee Hansen. I'm a librarian over at the Encinitas Library. I'm the adult services manager. We have a brand new librarian over at the Encinitas Library, so I wanted to introduce her. Her name is Ann Hall, and she is the outreach services librarian. So we're just here to share some programming that's happening at the library that would be of interest to seniors. One thing that's coming up, I am hosting a U.S. History Through Protest Music program. It's going to be Wednesday, January 29th at 3 p.m. The instructor will be talking about U.S. history, and she's also a musician and will be playing protest songs. It's going to be a really nice tie-in with the movie that's out right now about Bob Dylan. Something else, AARP is hosting weekly free income tax preparation assistance on Fridays in the library from 10 to 2, and that'll be starting on February 7th. And you don't necessarily have to be a senior to take advantage of this, but it's free income tax preparation help. Lastly, I wanted to mention that I am doing my annual local author showcase as a way to support and prop up our local authors. I still have room for a couple of more local authors, so if anybody knows of anybody, send them my way. The actual event will take place on Sunday, March 23rd. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
And the second speaker today is Ann Hall, who is the new Encinitas Outreach Librarian, and she's here to introduce herself and speak about library programs. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you, Senior Commissioner. It's a pleasure to be here. You're my last commission. I've already hit the Youth Commission and introduced myself and the arts. And so now I get to introduce myself to you all. I started at the beginning of December at our lovely Encinitas Library that I'm sure you all are proud of, hopefully have been recently too. I came from a different library, Poway, and also have been working on digitization efforts that the San Diego County Library has an initiative around. I'm a certified archivist and have worked in specialized research areas, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, other different library environments. So I'm happy to be here supporting our Encinitas community and focusing on outreach. I'll highlight 2 programs that I think would be of interest. The first one is a 3D printing program, 3D Printing 101. We've been doing it on Mondays and are now switching it up to try it on Sundays. So if you or anyone that you know of, any family members, would like to know more about 3D printing, I was able to sit in on the first one, and it was really interesting. It's a local individual that presents it, and you get to ask all these questions of maybe what you might be wondering about for 3D printing. That's going to be on Sunday, February 9th and Sunday, March 9th from 11:30 to 1, and we'll be creating flyers, having them available. The others program is a brand new program that we're starting called iPhone for Seniors. It was a proposal that was brought to us, and we scored it highly. We think that it will be of value to our community, and we're going to be offering it on the first and third Thursdays from 2 to 4. So it's going to be a combination of content, and then the latter part will be for individual questions and troubleshooting and things that maybe people are struggling with or want to figure out what to do. So one new program offering and a rescheduled one that we really hope will have a good turnout. So please share widely, and it'll be on our website. And thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you. It's always good to hear from our friends at the library.
Commissioner Stern, I have a question. By the way, thank
no
you
questions.
for the presentation.
Commissioner Stern, no questions for this part.
Oh, okay. Okay, no worries. Sorry.
The third speaker today is Melody Colombo with the Alevinheim Municipal Water District, and she's here to speak about public tours and EFRR volunteer opportunities. And as a reminder, you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Thanks, Jamie. It's an honor to be here today, commissioners. I used to work for the city, and actually I was sitting right there in Jamie's seat not too long ago, about 3 years ago, so it's nice to see everybody, especially I think Commissioner Hanwit and Ling. Nice to see you again. I'll try to make this brief. I did print out some copies of the packet that I put together for this afternoon. I'm here from Alevinheim Municipal Water District. We share the service territory with San Dieguito Water District in providing water services to the customers in the city of Encinitas. And I'm here to let you know about a couple of areas of interest that I think that this commission would benefit from. We offer public facilities tours of our water treatment plant, our 4S reclamation facility, as well as our Elfin Forest Recreational Reserve. We provide these public tours complimentary. You don't have to be a OMWD customer per se, and they're very educational. They meet at our headquarters, and we facilitate the tour through a guided fashion. We provide the transportation from our headquarters. Typically, the tours start at 8 a.m. and end around noon. The next 2 tours are scheduled for April 10th and I believe July 10th. If you're interested in participating, we would love to have you or any of the seniors or any actual member of the public to come and visit us. We're trying to increase awareness of the tours, and we would love to see you there. So if you're interested, please let me know, or you can go to our website at www.olivenheim.com and just go down to the customer service tours and events, and all of these items will be listed there, and we'd love to have you. The other item that I wanted to let you know about is volunteer opportunities at our EFRR Interpretive Center and trails. I've included within the packet some information about if anyone is interested in participating in our trail patrol. It's basically a voluntary program. You can participate either in patrolling the trails and helping the rangers in that capacity, or if you're not interested in doing that, you're also welcome to participate in volunteer activities at the Interpretive Center. I have a picture of the Interpretive Center here for you in the packet, and we'd love to have you if you're interested. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much.
And excuse me, Commissioner or Chair Ling, we have one last speaker. We have Jim O'Hara, and he's here to speak about activation at the commission. And as a reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak to the commission.
We're good. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm really excited to meet all of you. This is my first senior commission meeting. I've met a couple of you out in public, but I wanted to come in and just poke my head in the door and say hello. First off, introduce myself to all of you now. I'm excited to see what this commission can do going forward. I believe it can be activated more, and I would love for each of you to send me an email and tell me what you think we can do as a city to, I don't want to say include, I'm not sure what the right term is, but to the issues that you feel this commission can be more proactive in the city, that maybe the opportunity is there to do. I think there's a wealth of experience and people who are obviously very motivated to do some really neat, exciting, and positive things sitting up here at this dais. So I want to start with that. Tomorrow we have an item on the agenda for the City Council. I want to invite all of you to shoot me an email with your thoughts on it. I know that, Jesse, we spoke about it. I'm sorry, Commissioner Hanwit, we've spoken about it. And I'd love to get all of your input on it. I'm a father. not a senior citizen. I obviously deal with a lot of families. I deal with people my age, businesses. I'm not in your population as much. And admittedly, that's something I'd like to get more input on from you. I have plenty of senior citizen friends, but you're a group of people dedicated to getting the outcomes and representing that voice here, and I would love to hear more from all of you. So just leaving that out there. Tomorrow I'll be in my office from 4 o'clock on. If you want to pick up the phone and call me about that agenda item, go ahead. If you don't have time and you want to send me an email, I'd love to hear that. Maybe we can start from there. So thank you for your service, for helping this community, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 6, changes to the agenda. Do we have any changes to today's agenda?
There are none.
Okay, agenda item 7, approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the November 19th, 2024 meeting minutes?
Commissioner Martin, I have a move that we approve the
November.
November 19th minutes.
Do I hear a second to this motion?
Commissioner Gaber, second.
Okay, Commissioner Martin makes the motion, Commissioner Gaber seconds the motion. I'll remind Commissioner Stern and myself, neither of us were in attendance at that November meeting, so we would have to abstain on this item. So we'll go to voting.
Let the record show that the motion passes with all commissioners voting yes, except Commissioner Stern and Chair Ling, who abstain, and Commissioner Angel is absent.
Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 8, action item, Senior Citizen Commission Annual Work Plan. I would like to go through work plan items 1 through 11. I'll read the stated goal, and then I'll ask the commissioners to provide updates to these work plan items. Work plan item 1, attend city-hosted events and programs and city-partnered events serving as city ambassadors or volunteers. Any updates?
Commissioner Martin, is this going through the past ones, December?
Yeah.
Well, I was really happy to have my fellow commissioners that did attend the holiday parade, and I thought it was wonderful, but I'd love to hear any other input. And, of course, the children are delightful, but everyone seemed to have a great time. I did hear that it was still at the 15,000 estimate for people, and yet anybody I ever talked to, that day, as well as several days after, said it seemed like it was considerably more people. So I wondered if there was an updated estimate.
Any other updates? I have been doing a lot of family vacation travel, but I'm back. I'll be doing my normal tutoring at the computer lab on Thursdays, and of course, also taking care of senior lunch on Thursdays. Okay, that brings us to work plan item 2, identify guest speakers for monthly meetings to provide education regarding topics related to the work plan goals and adults 50 plus, and find platforms to disseminate the information to adults 50 plus. It looks like we've got a pretty full calendar.
Commissioner Martin, I'd just like to say thank you for today. It was such an incredible timeliness that it did overlap, and I would like to see it distributed consistently, because I have heard a considerable output of people, particularly again in my neighborhood, which is a real high risk, I would say a disastrously high risk area, that we need some.
And I see a big stack of disaster preparedness guides in
Yes.
front of Manager Goodsell.
Anyway, thank you, guys.
This is Manager Goodsell. Just wanted to say to please start thinking about what speakers you'd like for the next term, and then I can go ahead and work on getting those lined up for the year. March is usually really busy because that's when we begin our, creating our work plan and forming ad hoc committees. So we tend not to have a speaker at the March meeting. And then in April, it looks like potentially Christine Schindler will be speaking and talking about she's the Safe Routes and School educator and cycling instructor. So she would talk about driver safety around bikes, e-bikes, and pedestrians, and then older adult-focused city cycling classes.
And this is Commissioner Hanwood. I just wanted to share that I have heard her presentation, and it's actually very worthwhile because everybody sort of struggles with the e-bikes especially, and there's a lot of new markings on the roads that we're not sure what they mean. So I'm looking forward to having her come here. That would be great.
Commissioner Koblenz, so I understand we're looking for February, May, and June?
Don't we have February is
Manager
Amy Stuck?
Goodsell, we
This-
do have a speaker in February, Amy Stuck. She's a PhD and RN with Village Encinitas.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gaber, I'm interested in a briefing on the Encinitas homeless plan as it affects seniors. That's been active for over a year now, I believe 2 years, and especially in the light of some changes to downtown, eliminating some seating materials. And, I know about 4 homeless people I see pretty regularly downtown, and all 4 of them happen to be seniors. And I'm just wondering if we could have a briefing. I believe we have a homeless coordinator on staff.
Yes, and he came out to speak to us a while back, so maybe it's a good time for an update. Okay, work plan item 3, continue partnership with the Encinitas Rotary Club and explore other Encinitas Service Club or collaborations to recognize or promote the Senior Citizen Service Award. Any updates?
Commissioner Martin, I think all of you have this flyer, and the way it works is that you can just scan the barcode or whatever you call this thing. And the important things on here are the application submission, which goes up to the 20th of March. It's a little bit longer than the last time. It started a little bit later. And for the criteria, it's 60 and above, as well as being from Encinitas. There's a few more details, but those are available on the line. All of us as commissioners have a responsibility to be out there. Karen has been out there in spades doing the interactions with people almost on a daily basis as far as I see, and we all really appreciate that. I don't know if we've had any applicants, but there is, I know you and I have talked about the fact that with these IT events, the Girl Scouts as well as the Techie event, I think I already have a good stack, so I will be definitely telling people about this as well as the rest of the IT events.
Commissioner Koblenz, I understand a nomination was turned in. Would it go to the Oakcrest Cafe first and then make it to your desk?
So all applications should be submitted to City Hall here in Encinitas Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay.
And it says that on the nomination
Yeah,
form.
let me clarify that.
Or an email to
So
Parks and
I
Recreation.
remember that, so I'm wondering if it went to staff at the Oakcrest Cafe, then they would have turned it in to the city? I'll find,
They should have been
I'll find out where they sent it.
directed to submit it to Encinitas Parks and Recreation or via email to Parks and Recreation.
Work plan item 4, create new and sustain ongoing intergenerational programming in collaboration with the Encinitas Youth Commission. I have a couple of handouts here. I think everybody's we've got the Techie Tutors event coming up in a couple of weekends. It looks like it's been pretty well staffed, and we're kind of working through the logistics, the final logistics in preparation for that. I also wanted to mention the Girl Scouts phone tablet technology tips program, which is done independently, but I think it kind of dovetails very nicely to what we're doing in collaboration with the Youth Commission, and also some of the new stuff that's being proposed at the library, the iPhones for Seniors program. Anything else? Okay, work plan item 5, explore gardening partnership with the Encinitas Boys and Girls Club and gardening classes, educational workshop offerings. Any updates?
Well, this is Commissioner Hanwett. The update is that there's no update because we have not heard back from them. So I imagine we'll maybe try to touch base again one more time.
I think so. Yeah, we basically left it in their court to put together a master plan and a budget plan, so that would be the basis for any future grant applications. Okay, work plan item 6, support staff in creating, promoting, and sustaining new and ongoing programs for adults 50+ at the Encinitas Community and Senior Center, Encinitas Parks, and/or San Diego County Libraries in Encinitas. Any updates? No.
This is Manager Goodsell. I did want to say that the January Mingle and Create event was very successful. We had 16 people registered, and we hosted a vision board project for 2025, along with a sound bath with crystal bowls, meditation, and then also this really cool virtual reality experience, which was a trip to Japan and Vietnam. So that was really exciting and fun to do. And we'll be offering that next month as well. So I encourage you to register and sign up and spread the word.
Thank you.
And the virtual reality program is complimentary to the first 20 Encinitas residents that complete an application and sign up in person.
Work plan item 7, leverage participation in Age Well San Diego 2.0 and AARP conversations to make recommendations that can directly affect the adult 50+ community in Encinitas. Any updates?
This is Commissioner Hanwett. Work on this goal is ongoing. Nothing else to report.
Work plan item 8. Work plan item 8, explore grant funding and opportunities based on community needs and survey results. Any updates here?
This is Manager Goodsell. So we will be receiving $1,500 from the San Diego Seniors Community Foundation, and that's to host the 7 virtual reality experiences as part of our Mingle series. And like I said, it was definitely well received at the last one we did, and participants were definitely immersed in the 3D tour, which was really fun. And I got to experience it as well. I'd never put on one of those headsets before, so it was pretty exciting. And like I said, next month we're traveling to Cuba and also Paris.
Ooh.
And then we're also going to be learning some salsa dance lessons.
Work plan item 9, gain knowledge on available community resources and services for adults 50+ and disseminate information to 50+ adults. Any updates?
This is Commissioner Hanwett. I just want to give you a quick Village Encinitas update. Of course, everything that I've mentioned in the past continues on, where we're just continuing to recruit new members. We are going to have a information session at the Senior Center on the 27th from 10:30 to 11:30, where we're hoping that potential new members will show up and we can tell them all about the the village. On February 8th, there is an expo that the Chamber of Commerce is putting on also at the Senior Center. And the village has a table at that so that we can reach a lot of people that attend that. I know they have pretty good attendance. And then on the 12th of February, I'm going to participate in the panel for the Chrissy Lavander's senior lecture series. We're going to be talking about loneliness and social isolation. And I'm going to talk about the difference that being a part of the village can make.
Okay, any other updates? I wanted to point out the quarterly edition of the newsletter, What's the Buzz, is out. I get my 10 minutes of fame in this edition. Someone gave me a very favorable review in my role as computer lab tutor, so I appreciate that. Okay, work plan
I
item
do
10.
love these this Commissioner
They
Martin.
are. They're great.
I do love these newsletters. I think it's just fabulous. It's great.
Okay, work plan item 10. Research best practices as it relates to adult 50-plus issues. Send letters of support to city council and commissions and follow up as needed. Any updates? Nope. Work plan item 11. I think we've got closure on this, but this is create senior citizen commission bylaws. Any updates? How are the other commissions coming along with their bylaws?
I understand they're still working on them, so we're just kind of at a standstill right now.
Okay.
Commissioner Martin, we were so good at it. I'm sure one or the other of us wouldn't mind showing up and actually walking them through it.
We'll extend the offer. Okay. All right, that brings us to agenda item 9, informational items. Manager Goodsell, do you have a senior center operations report for us?
I sure do, thank you. 475 senior meals were provided in November and 409 in December. 206 one-way rides were provided in November and 178 in December. There were 954 non-nutrition participants registered for programs in November and 633 in December. Mark your calendars for upcoming senior events and activities during the lunch program, which include Creative Corner, where we will create vision boards on January 23rd, a Winter Wonderland-themed luncheon on January 30th, and of course, a birthday celebration on February 7th. And as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be hosting a mingle and move with salsa dance lessons, and that will take place on February 25th from 1 to 3:30 p.m. And we will also offer a free virtual reality experience for the first 20 to sign up in person that are Encinitas residents, and that'll be to Cuba. Compliments of the San Diego Senior Community Foundation. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Manager Hamer, you're going to provide us with a department update?
Department update is that we are ready to roll into the new year with some new and innovative programs. As Christy shared, the virtual reality already started, which I do believe was enjoyed, and especially by her since she got to test it out. We're also rolling out a co-ed soccer league. So if you have any soccer enthusiasts, it's co-ed. It should be a lot of fun, and again, in the spirit of recreation. Some upcoming events are this Friday, January 25th, is the Music by the Sea concert featuring the San Diego Music Society. Tickets are sold online on the city website. As you had already talked about your techie tutors, that's actually next weekend, February 1st. So really great to have the Youth Commission and the Senior Commission working together collaboratively on that, and it's coming together, and that's going to be at the Encinitas Community Center, and hopefully you have a great turnout. Sundays starting in February, I had said that's the Adult Soccer League. That'll be on Sundays. And on March, these are a few dates just to save. On Saturday, April 5th, we'll have Arbor Day, and that's going to be 9 to noon at Cardiff Sports Park. This will be the first year that Recreation or the Parks and Recreation Department oversees that event. It used to be Public Works, so we'll be a little bit more involved in it than we have been in the past. Also, that is the same day as the Art Night will be on April 5th as well. Our spring egg hunt is going to be in Encinitas Community Park on Saturday, April 19th. And our movie in the park is on May 3rd. That's a Saturday, and it's going to be Moana 2. A community event that we have, though, coming up will be Saturday, February 8th. The Chamber of Commerce hosts a community resource fair, and we will host a table at that event, and we encourage you and the whole community to come and enjoy their hard work of bringing different community vendors there to share about what's available in Encinitas. And another piece of news is that the Youth Commission is looking to offer geocaching. If you're not familiar with it, it's like a digital scavenger hunt, but they're looking to do that at the different events I had just listed. So it might be a lot of fun for Senior Commission to connect with the Youth Commission to work on that and offering that. It's just a different level of engaging people to come and maybe have people come to our events that would not normally come, but they're going to come because we're offering geocaching now. So that's kind of on the horizon. And just a huge thank you. I know the holiday parade was mentioned. You guys rolled out a great feature, and having the Zumba dance group behind you, I think, made it a lot more pizzazz. And it was a great community event. So we look forward to more of that in 2025. Thank you for your collaboration.
Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 10, commission member initiated agenda items. This is commissioner prepared and presented agenda items. Do we have any today?
There are none.
There are none. Agenda item 11, future agenda items added by commission members. Commissioners, do you have any agenda items you would like to add for next time?
Commissioner Martin, with our representative from the City Council, I think that would be a good topic to talk about, because in some ways, I feel like maybe we need to have thoughts on how we promote ourselves as seniors, because he mentioned very clearly, as do quite a few other people sometimes when they talk, is we're just a separate group back here. And I would really like to say how much we are involved. In fact, during the holiday parade, I can't tell you how many times I heard adults stand up and little children stand up and say, "We love our seniors. We love our seniors." So we're part of this community, and I want everybody to know that we're part of this community. And then it sort of came up in the fire thing, because it was the seniors need to talk about that they need help. But as a nurse, I would have to say our community needs to know every senior in their direct community and pull them out of the burning house if they have to. So I guess that's saying a lot of words for, hopefully you hear what I'm trying to say.
So first off, I would like to say that my opinion is that this particular Senior Citizen Commission has been more engaged than ever. And I'm very, very pleased and very proud of everybody here. The second thing I was going to say is we're getting close to our March new term. And I think what we can do is we can keep those thoughts in mind when we formulate the new work plan for next term. So rather than have a separate discussion item next month, is when we start talking about the work plan, let's incorporate that thinking into our work plan.
I agree.
Okay. Any other items that we want to suggest? No? Let's go to the roundtable. Commission reports. Commissioners, if you have any other announcements or reports to add, I will start from the far. Actually, let me start with Commissioner Stern, who's in the teleconference, and then we'll start from that end of the dais and work our way this way. Commissioner Stern, do you have anything to add?
The only thing that I want to add is I agree with Commissioner Martin with what she just said. That's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I think that what I just said, and thank you, Commissioner Stern, is my comment. So, and how much I really do appreciate this organization. I agree. It's quite engaged. I've just been very impressed with our leadership as well as my team, and thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Commissioner Koblenz, we're talking about engagement in our community, and our speaker today is absolutely perfect, and we've been having conversations. In the light of the world today, not only the fires, I work, as some of you know, with the Chamber of Commerce. We have an event at Mixer tonight, and part of that is we will have an opportunity to make donations, specific donations, not just in the back of our closet, and we will be donating money. I'm also working with several of those relief efforts, and I think back to back with what she said, is she a captain? I do that all the time. Anyway, that's another, as Maureen has mentioned, another opportunity. And I happen to be making calls for CRC, and there was a woman who lost her house in 2003, and she has, it's called Home Life something, if you're interested. And what she does is she lost everything. She puts together a package of what you need if you've lost everything and how to go about making those steps. She's working on putting together 1,000 of them, and she will take them up to Los Angeles. So I said if she needed people, what I'm getting at, oh, and then again, we know grocery outlet. Grocery outlet, you can go to grocery outlet, buy stuff for our relief victims, and donate them there. But it gets even better. You don't have to buy them there. You can just drop them off. Now, I'm sure we all know, I know most of you reasonably well, we can't just take stuff and give it somewhere and think it's going to go somewhere. So under that vein of community, and along with Commissioner Stern, I think we have been given a wonderful opportunity to reach out, and I'm looking at Judy, all those opportunities that they're there. And I think that will help us be a little bit more upfront and personal, because now we have that chance. So I know I'm going on, but that's my job, is to look at how we can come together in different aspects, Techie Tutor, the Village, and CRC, and all these, because those opportunities are there. And I say I was going to say strike while the iron is hot, but that seems very inappropriate. Yet, I believe it's an opportunity we have, and I don't think we want to waste it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gaber, I just wanted to bring up that at the county level, there's a lot of openings on boards and advisory groups that if people would be interested in, just go to the county website and search boards and commissions. And I think it's an important way to bring the voice of Encinitas to the county level.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Hanwett, and I agree with that. And it's always very interesting to be a part of what's happening at the county level and learning about what's available in the community. And something that I started doing during COVID when we were stuck at home was joining all these other agencies and organizations that still offer webinars. For instance, in December, the American Society on Aging had a wonderful learning experience on fall risks and what to do about them. And then again in January, they had one on addressing social isolation and loneliness in older adults. So I feel like we have to keep learning about all these things as well, so that we can spread information, and we can do it in a knowledgeable way.
Thank you. And I want to point out this roundtable is a good opportunity to share what you've learned as well. So take advantage of that. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. The January 21st, 2025 Senior Citizen Commission meeting is hereby adjourned at 3:13 p.m. Thank you, everyone.